Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Build It with Tim. On today's episode, we're talking about email notifications. All right, so there's a lot that we can do with email notifications. The actual email that gets sent out is the easy part. How we build this into our application and how we build this into workflows can change drastically based on what type of application you have and how you want to reach that end result of the end result being actually the email being sent. Okay, so in today's episode, we are talking about sending basic emails on form submissions, sending complex emails on form submissions, sending an email through inserting a connected record, and that will make more sense when we actually look at it. But that will give you the ability to modify the actual subject and the body of the email as record values and then send those record values as your email values. Okay, and then the last one we're going to look at is sending an email through an automated scheduled task. Okay, now again, as you build these things into your application, you're going to find that there's hundreds more ways to do what we're doing. But today I just wanted to cover those four basic ways of sending emails, and I'll show those to you now. All right, let's get started. All right, everybody. So we're ready to start building out these different examples of how we can send email notifications through our application. But first, I just wanted to briefly talk about email settings, which are located in the Settings tab of your application. Okay, now by default, if you leave all of these email settings blank, then every email that gets sent from your application is going to be sent from a Tadabase SMTP server. The SMTP server meaning the actual outgoing mail server that is used to send or process and send emails. Okay, so that means that all recipients will receive emails from a generic email address. If you want to change that to something like your own work or business or personal email address, then you'll need to include custom SMTP settings. The settings are going to vary based on your email provider, whether that's Gmail or any of the other ones out there, but you can find that information from your provider and input it into the custom SMTP settings fields here. Now, the other option that you may want to think about is utilizing a SMTP service like SENDGRID. Okay, so we have documentation that I will include a link for on how to use something like SENDGRID as your SMTP provider. And that is a great option in order to send customized emails from your own personal or business address. Okay, so moving on into the data builder, I've already configured some tables to work with the different examples that we're going to discuss today. And those examples, again, are sending a basic email on form submission, a complex email on form submission, an email that is sent when inserting a new connected record, and emailing as a scheduled task. So the first one is the basic email notification, and that's going to occur when a new record is added into this customer's table. The basic email will not give you the ability to actually modify the information that's sent. The only thing you'll be able to do is add a condition there and modify where the email gets sent to. The second one is going to be a complex email, right, where we're actually able to modify the to address, the from address, the subject, and the body. The third one being the inserting a connected record. What's going to happen is if we want to send an email to one of these customers, we are going to be able to customize the email that we want to send for every single time we want to send an email. And we're going to do that by inserting a connected record into the sent emails table. So we have two connection fields. One is going to the customers table, so the customer that we wish to email. The sent from is coming from the users table or a connection to the users table so that we can collect the logged in user who actually sent the email. And then a date timestamp for when the email was sent. And then the subject and body, which are going to be editable by the logged in user. And when we submit that form, it will insert a record into this table and fire an email. And the last one is going to the scheduled task that we're going to run. I'm going to set that up using a practical use case here of projects and tasks where users are assigned to projects. And then we are going to count how many emails or how many tasks a user is currently has assigned to them and email that every day on a schedule. All right, so let's go into the page builder now and start working on the first example, which is sending a basic email. Okay, now this is going to happen on form submission, where all email notifications are happening on form submission, but we're going to insert a record into the customers table. And in order to get to the email notification, we're going to go into the actual form, the notifications tab, and the email section. And now we can add a new email. So inside this page, we can add a number of emails if we wanted to send multiple on form submission. In this case, I'm only going to do one. And you can see the options that we have available to us are quite limited. We can set a condition here where we only want to send an email if, let's say, the status is a lead or something. And then here we can just define who we want to send this email to. All right, so if I configure this email and save the form, now when we preview the page and submit this form, so let's say this is a test customer, uh, this is their email address, contact date, it's going to be today, status is lead, and we'll leave attachments blank for now. This form will submit. And in just a few seconds, we are going to receive that email. So here you can see this is the default information that's being sent through the email, right? No configuration done by us. It's sending us the fields that were included in the form and their values. It's also telling us where this email was submitted from or sent from, the form that was submitted, and when. Okay, so that is the basic email that we can set up. Now, if we go back to our page builder, we will set up another page here as an example where we'll do sending a complex email. And again, we're going to utilize the form component. Okay, again, we're going to edit our form component, go to notifications, add a new email, and this time we're going to choose custom email. All right, now we can still apply a condition here if we wish, but you can see now we have the ability to customize this with a lot more information. So if we wanted to send a CC or a BCC or a reply to address, we can do that. We can change the from and email to things like field values or logged in users field values. And same with the email. We can choose an email field from here. We can customize it by typing it in, or we can choose a logged in user's email field here. The subject and the body at this point will now give us the ability to insert insert record values that came in from the form submission. So, we could do new customer alert and include the customer name here. Okay, where field values will be contained within this single bracket. And then we can do the same thing for the actual email message here as well. And then if you notice down at the bottom, this is available on certain Tadabase plans only, but we can include attachments field as an email attachment. So if somebody uploads an image, this will be included as an attachment for your email. Okay, so this is the custom email that we can send. Now, the one that I found the most interesting is the one that gives us the ability to actually create the email from the live app and send it. Okay, so the basic email and the custom email are fine and good. They work fantastic throughout your application whenever you need to send these automated notifications, but they are predefined in the builder, meaning you set them up once and then through the live app, anytime somebody submits that form, it's going to send the same email every single time with, obviously, it's only going to substitute the record values that you might be using as variables. Now, what if you want to build a way in your application to let the live app user, actually write their own subject, their own body of the email for every single email that they want to send? Then we can do that with inserting a connected record and the email notification. So here we're going to do we'll write this as, how about custom email? All right, so here's what this can look like when you're building this out in your application. So let's say I have a list of customers. I'm going to add a table component to show all of my customers, and I'm going to include a detail page here. Okay, so there's actually two ways that we can do this. They're both going to use detail pages, but one is going to be a pop-up and one is going to be a standalone detail page. So the first one we're going to do is this standalone detail page. So let's do this where we call this link, we'll say send email. And just to let us know which one we're working with, we'll say detail page. And for here, we're going to choose an icon. And we'll make this a button, and the primary color is fine. Okay, so clicking this button is going to navigate us to the customer detail page, where now we can include a form. The form component is going to be adding a new sent email record. So if you remember when I discussed this data table specifically, this data table contains a connection to the customer, who we're sending it to, a connection to the users table, which is going to be which logged in user actually sent the email, and then a date timestamp for when the email was sent, and then a subject and a body field as text and rich text so that we can create this email on the fly in the live app and send those record values. So we are going to insert a new sent email record that connects to this customer. And on this form, we're only going to include the subject and the body. Okay, now by default, with the data source that we selected, this is adding a new connected sent email to the customer. So we do not need to set the sent to connection field here because it's being set automatically with the data source of this form. The sent from, we're going to set in a record rule. So we can add a record rule to say set the from address to the logged in user. Or no, I'm sorry, not the sent from address, but the sent from connection value to the users table to the logged in user. And we're going to set the sent on date time field to the current date and time. Okay, now in the notifications, what we're going to do is, because we're inserting a new record, that's what this form is doing. When we send an email, within the subject and the body, what we can do is we're actually going to have access to the field values for the sent email record that we're inserting. Okay, we're not going to have access to the record values from the customer table. We're getting access to the record values from the sent email table. So the subject, we can pass the record value of subject, and the body, we can send a record value of the body. Okay, and now for the to and the from name and email, we can do the same thing. So we can say field, and it's going to go to the email, the connected email address of which customer this is being sent to. The from name, we can do the same thing. We can either do this through, we're going to do, logged in user field. So we're collecting the sent from is coming from the logged in user. So we can say pull the logged in user's name and the logged in user's email, and that's going to be included on this email as it's sent out. Okay, and then just for tracking purposes, again, in record rules, we're saying the sent from is the logged in user. That way, as an administrator of the application, or even this own user who's logged in, you could have a page in your application where you could go and then essentially build an email log, a sent log, to say, here's all the emails that I have sent as a logged in user. Okay, or again, as an administrator, here's all the emails that were sent from various users, but that way you're able to see which user sent which email. Okay, so that's all we have to do to set this up. Now, on the same page, what I'm going to include is a table of sent emails that are connected to this customer. So we'll select that this top option here, and this will let us see what was sent to this customer over time. Okay, so whether I sent it, you sent it, somebody else on your team sent it, it doesn't matter. We'll be able to see all of those emails that connect to the customer, no matter who actually sent the email. Right, I have a user record here. Let me just fix the role here. Let's give this user the default role. I'm going to log in as this user, and then I can run through that whole workflow, right, where I'm logged in as admin user. and I'm sending an email to whatever customer I choose, and I'm able to modify that email on the fly and send those values that I input. Okay, so let's log into this application and test that out. All right, so it's under the custom email link here. Here is the customer record that we did from sending a basic email, but for now, I'm going to send an email to myself here as a customer. This is going to take us to the customer detail page where now I can input my own subject and my own body. Thanks for your support. I don't know, it can be anything you want. And then we can just add a bunch of text here if we choose. Okay, now when we hit the save button, again, what's happening here is we're inserting this record into the sent email table. And then we're using those record values that I'm inputting on this form to pass to our custom email. So when I hit save, you're going to see that saves the record as a sent email. And then in a moment here, I should get an email with the exact values that we just inputted. All right, so that is example number 3 of how we can kind of do this on the fly. But let's do this one more way, where now we are essentially going to duplicate that same workflow. But rather than doing it on a detail page, you may want to do this in a pop-up instead. So we're going to add a second detail page. And we're going to say send email. This time it's going to be in a pop-up. We're going to enable show and pop-up for this detail page. We'll do the same thing with our icon where we'll choose a mail icon and change this to a button, but we'll change the color to something different so that we can kind of differentiate the two. All right, now when we go to this customer page, you're going to see now we have this detail page pop-up. So we're going to build the form, the same form that's here. We're going to build that the same way, except we're just going to do it in the pop-up so it looks like we're actually we're kind of giving the impression that this pop-up is dedicated to sending an email, which I guess it kind of is, but it's actually technically a detail page. So we're going to go to that second detail page and we're going to delete the detail component. We don't need that. And we'll add our form. All right, same thing as before. We're going to add a new sent email connected to this customer. And the only thing we need to include is the subject and the body. Actually, we'll leave the title blank for now. And then in our rules, we still have to set up the same record rule, which is setting the sent from to the logged in user, the sent on to the current date and time. And then in our notifications, we are setting up that same custom email where the sent to is coming from the connected customer's email field. And we're pulling logged in user fields for who's sending it. So the name and the email. Okay, and then subject, again, we're passing the subject, and body, we are passing the body. All right, great. That's all we need to do. Now, when we go back to this page now and we click the detail link that is the pop-up, here is that form that we just created. Again, it's the same exact form that's on this standalone detail page. We're just showing it in the pop-up this time. So that if we include a subject, the same thing is going to happen. That email is going to get sent, and we are going to receive that email just as we did previously. Okay, now as I mentioned before, and I just want to point out one more time, is that because I don't have any custom SMTP settings set in this application, so you can see it does send as my name, the logged in user's name, but it's going to send from this default email address because it is sending through the Tadabase SMTP servers. Okay, so that is the third way. We are all done with that. Now, let's talk about the last item on the list, which is scheduled task. So again, we're going to have this practical use case of members of your team or your organization are being assigned tasks. Okay, so we're going to utilize the Well, we're gonna use the customers table for this. We're just gonna pretend that they're no longer customers and that these are employees or something. So we are going to add a field here, and we are going to choose a count field, which is a complex formula, and we'll call this assigned tasks. And this is going to be, we're going to be able to count the connected tasks because we have a connection field going from the task record to the customer table, where we're going to count all connected tasks. Okay, that way when somebody from the customers table is connected here to this record, we'll be able to see how many tasks they are assigned to. So let's just do this as a quick example now. This is going to be record video. All right, and the project is going to be building a web application, and we're going to assign it to Tim Young. Okay, now when I go back to the customers table here, you can see Tim Young has one assigned task. All right, now in the automation tab under scheduled task, we're going to set up a new scheduled task to send assigned task counts. This is going to run on the customers table because that's where the that complex formula lives, right? Where we want to know how many tasks they have assigned. And we're going to do this on a schedule, and we're going to set this to daily. And let's say this is at the start of the workday. We're going to do this at 9 a.m. Okay, now our actual task action is going to look almost identical to what you've seen so far in record rules and action rules, things like that, is that we are updating this record, except we're not, sorry. We have that as an option, but you also have those other similar options. In this case, we're going to choose send an email. Now, we are going to add a condition to this, which we haven't done previously in the other three examples, but we're going to do it here. And that condition is going to be if assigned tasks is higher than 0, I guess you could do. So as long as, they need to have some assigned tasks in order to receive the email. And then we can set up this email the same way. Now, this way we're pulling, we're not doing anything with that sent email table at this point. We're only really have access to either logged in user information or record information from the customer table. So in this case, we're going to send to the customer's email, okay, because that email field exists on the customer record. And the from name from email, you can set a custom value here. And the subject, again, we can add some customer information here, but we can say like tasks assigned for today. Okay, so this will include a number value, and that will indicate how many tasks assigned for today. And then the body of the message, right, you can type whatever you want. So good morning. Good morning, Tim. You have, same thing. We're going to pull in that number of assigned tasks. Due today. Sure, something like that. Okay. Now to test this, right, this is going to send every day at 9 a.m. But if we want to test this now, we can run the task. We'll check the history. You're going to see it's going to process on the customers table. Only one record met that condition, right? So if we look at the customers table, these two records have 0 as assigned task. My record has 1. So when we look at that task history, you're going to see only one record met that condition and one record was processed. And if I go back to my email, here's the email that was sent. Okay, here's our subject, one task assigned for today. Good morning, Tim. You have one assigned task due today. All right. And that's sending from a scheduled task. All right. So just to recap a little bit, because that's all I have for you today, we learned how to send a basic email with form notifications. We learned how to set up a more customized email. We also did inserting a new record into a dedicated email, quote unquote, email data table and using all those record values in your actual email. Again, I think this is the coolest way to do this because it gives those live app users the ability to customize their own email as if they were writing it from a dedicated email client. And then the last one, which we just covered, obviously, was sending from a scheduled task. All right, everybody, I hope that helped cover some of the things you can do with email notifications. Of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.